Beveridge, Chair of the Business North. What's happening in the Northern Powerhouse? How can we learn?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I bring you salutations from all your cousins in the North. Thank you very much for inviting me along. It's always good to get out of one's own region and into another region, find out what's going on, what other people are up to, compare notes, and hopefully find the right ways of supporting each other and collaborating. I'm also a very keen motorsport fan, so coming to Silverstone is always very enjoyable. There's not many places you can go where the background noise is sort of high-performance V8s just outside the window. Hopefully you'll be listening to me rather than them, though. In the short time I have, I thought I'd start with a very brief resume of the Northern Powerhouse, just to give you a bit of context and some dimensions to it. So the Northern Powerhouse is a concept aimed at corralling and focusing the principal actions required to reduce the regional economic imbalances that we see in our country, particularly with London and the South East and the north of England, all the way from Hull and Humber on the east coast, across to Crewe, and then right up to the Scottish border. It's an economy of about 300 billion per annum in gross value added terms, so it's about a fifth of the UK economy, with about 16 million people living in that area, with some of the UK's great cities, particularly from the 18th and 19th centuries. But we also have a sizable non-metropolitan and rural hinterland around those cities, which are really important. And in fact, many of our businesses, particularly our manufacturing businesses, are located in those non-metropolitan and rural areas. So the Northern Powerhouse, although the cities are very important to us, it's not only about the cities. But unfortunately, we underperform economically when compared with national averages, to the tune of about 25%. If you take London out, it's about 12%. London has a huge, makes a huge difference. And that's for a variety of reasons, one of which is infrastructure investment, including transport, associated connectivity. But the Northern Powerhouse is not just about transport. We seek to integrate a range of actions that are required to boost economic growth, including education, skills, productivity, and crucially further devolution. Devolution has been mentioned a couple of times by other speakers, and I'm sure everybody in this room knows that we live in one of the most, if not the most centralised economies in the developed world, and government has set off down a devolution route, and certainly as businesses in the north, we very much want to see that continue so that people in the regions can take more control and more responsibility of their future and what's ahead of them. The prize is very large. We commissioned in the north an independent economic review a couple of years ago, which showed that an additional gross value added contribution of approximately 100 billion a year is available over the next 2 to 3 decades through a focused series of actions at closing that economic gap and levelling up the north to the same level that we see on average across the UK. And here today, you've been talking about creating your economic vision. I would certainly encourage that. Our economic review of 2 years ago is our cornerstone document, really. It's also our economic evidence base. So as well as an economic vision, you will need a thorough, comprehensive and compelling economic evidence base. I'm sure you've got some of that already because some investments are already underway. And that's something that business absolutely has to be involved in and has a crucial role in contributing to. So Business North then, what's Business North, the organisation I chair? We are essentially an enabler for businesses working with the business representative organisations to come together to express a northern voice in the most focused way possible on the big ticket issues for northern businesses. We are a pure business play. We're made up of businesses on the third sector. We are a lean and complementary structure which seeks to bulk up the voice of business in the north. So we're open to all businesses and organisations in the third sector in the north. We are not a subscription-based organisation, so we don't go around collecting subscriptions from people. We did not simply want to be another competitor to what's already quite a crowded landscape of business representative organisations, like the CBI, the local chambers, or the Federation of Small Business. So we don't see ourselves competing with them. We see ourselves as complementary to those existing structures. We have about 300 business participants, and we operate on a sponsorship model, essentially. So businesses that are part of us can contribute in kind, small financial contributions, or second people to do particular pieces of work. So that's how we build capacity. We don't do it through a subscription basis. We're also keen to look at what's happening in other regions and not just be focused on the north. Earlier this year, I did some work with London First and the Midlands Engine, making the case that it's not about investing in London or the Midlands or the north. Actually, we need investment in all the regions across the UK, including this one. So I thought it was quite a powerful piece of work coming together with other regions to say to central government, you can't play us off against each other. We all need the investment. We've all made strong cases, and we're supporting each other in that endeavour. And we're continuing the links with London First and the Midlands Engine in that respect. The origins of Business North, how did it come together? When George Osborne came to Manchester in June of 2014, and he spoke at the Museum of Science and Industry in Manchester, where you can see all the glories of the 19th and 18th century of the economy at that time in Manchester. Fantastic place. But he first talked about the concept of a northern powerhouse across the whole of the north, across a large geography. And many of us in business were, we could see a lot in that. We were quite excited about it. We could see the benefits of an integrated and focused programme at the scale of the north, so a big scale, with strong political backing from the Chancellor to tackle regional economic imbalances. So business was really quite excited and quite up for this. It was quite an exciting prospect from Osborne, but it was also quite daunting. It was highly ambitious, what he was outlining, but that's actually precisely what we needed. We needed high ambition, and I think that intervention from the Chancellor back then really sort of turbocharged and boosted the ambition in the north, and we've done our best to keep that up in terms of what needs to be done both in the public and private sector to close that economic gap that I mentioned earlier on. So as things started to develop post-Osborne's intervention, we could see a lot of central government and local government activity, and that was fine. But what appeared to us to be missing was a coherent business, private sector voice in what was happening. So a group of 8 to 10 of us, like-minded business people, decided we probably need to take some initiative here. But we didn't rush into it. We took our time to carefully think through the options and engage with others across business to test our hypotheses that there was such a gap for a business-focused organisation. We talked extensively to the existing representative organisations like the CBI and the Chambers, because we didn't simply want to become a competitor to them in a fairly crowded landscape. We still work closely with the CBI and the local chambers. There are over 20 chambers across the Northern Powerhouse region. But the CBI is a national organisation, and sometimes it's hard for them to take a purely northern position, or indeed a southwest position or a northeast, any sort of regional position, without ruffling feathers elsewhere across the CBI landscape. And I used to be CBI Northwest Regional Chair, so I participated in that process. I know how the CBI works, and I know it can be difficult. We didn't want to be constrained by that. Equally, the chambers are generally quite small and quite local, so again, it's hard for them to take a pan-northern view. We also have 11 LEPs across the north, which are very important, but they are public-private partnerships, and they have to synthesise the input and views of both business and the public sector. So we held about 4 discussion sessions with a cross-section of business people. KPMG very helpfully helped facilitate that using their networks. And from that, we distilled what is now Business North. So my advice is don't rush into things. Take some time to discuss, engage, build understanding, ownership and support for what you believe you need to do in this region. One question I was asked to address is why it's important for business to get involved. And my answer to that is I think business is absolutely critical to supporting the evidence base and the business case for major infrastructure investment. And much of what you've been talking about today is focused on that. Transport investment is a means to an end, but it's not the end in itself. The end objective is normally economic growth, and that can only be delivered on the ground by businesses. Furthermore, the full economic benefits of public investment in infrastructure can only be fully realised if business is properly engaged to exploit improved connectivity to the full, particularly the so-called dynamic economic effects from infrastructure investment, as opposed to just the static issues of the here and now issues of congestion and overcrowding and perhaps some safety issues. I think business can bring a lot to the table looking ahead to the medium and longer term about the dynamic economic benefits that can come from public investment in infrastructure. So I think there's a really important role for business to fulfill there, and you need to identify the right sort of mechanism, the right structure that sort of helps you do that. So for our part in the North, we've worked closely with Transport for the North, which is the first sub-national transport body outside of London. So it has strategic responsibility for transport across the whole of the Northern Powys region, and is now a legal entity and has a legal structure and powers to it. So we work closely with Transport for the North as they've developed their strategy, providing them with business engagement, with support, with our views, with regular sessions with them. We've also had regular dialogue with transport ministers and senior officials, including Chris Grayling on several occasions, which is always interesting. He came to one of our events, I think it was last September, only about a month after announcing the cancellation of various electrification projects across the north. So that was a pretty spirited discussion and debate, but actually I think he quite enjoys that. And he certainly values getting a business perspective and a business input in things. And my experience, many years dealing with government, is that they do value a clear business view alongside that of local government and other public bodies such as Transport for the North. And I think businesses are often in a really strong position to help drive collaboration. Sometimes I don't want to be critical of the public sector here. They have a really important role to play. But sometimes they're not as good at collaborating.